My parents tried to blackmail me into becoming my sister's free, live-in nanny by threatening to triple my rent. That night changed everything for me. Cora is 28, a hard-working project manager who pays $800 a month to live in a condo her parents, Raymond and Diane, own. They always called it a helping hand. But deep down, she knew it was another way for them to stay in control. Meanwhile, her younger sister, Fallon, is the golden child. She recently had a baby, Mason, with her careless boyfriend. Since then, their parents have paid for everything: rent, diapers, groceries, even her car repairs. Fallon never hears the word no. One evening, Cora is invited to what she thinks is a simple family dinner. But as soon as she steps inside, she senses something is off. Dinner ends quickly, and her parents guide her into her father's study as if she is being called into a meeting. Diane begins gently, talking about how overwhelmed Fallon has been since becoming a mother. She explains that Fallon finally got a part-time job and needs support. Since Cora works from home 2 days a week, Diane says she should watch baby Mason during those days. It is presented as a reasonable family request, but the tone feels more like an order. Cora calmly explains that her job is demanding. She spends most of her remote days on video calls, leading meetings, and managing deadlines. She cannot chase after a baby while handling high-stakes projects. She thinks her parents will understand, but instead, they exchange a look. Raymond leans back and delivers the real message. If she refuses, her rent will jump from $800 to the market rate of $2,200, effective immediately. No discussion. No warning. Just a clean threat disguised as a business decision. Diane quickly steps in, pretending it is a fair deal. She calls it a win-win. Fallon instantly starts playing the victim, wiping away fake tears and whispering that Cora is selfish for not wanting to bond with her nephew. The room feels cold. Cora realizes they didn't invite her to talk. They invited her to pressure her. Her own parents are using her housing insecurity as leverage to force her into free labor. She looks at each of them and sees the truth clearly for the first time. They don't appreciate her. They only value what she can provide. Holding back tears, she quietly stands up, thanks them for dinner, and walks out. Her parents call after her, but she is already at the door. On the drive home, her hands are shaking. She isn't just hurt. She feels betrayed in a way she has never felt before. Her family didn't care about her workload, her boundaries, or her life. All they cared about was keeping Fallon comfortable. That night, as she sits alone in the condo, she realizes something important. They think she's trapped, but she's already planning her next move. When I got home that night, I sat on my couch and let everything sink in. The anger, the shock, the confusion, it all mixed together. And then, out of nowhere, old memories started coming back, memories I had pushed down for years. I remembered the day Fallon crashed the family car into a mailbox. She cried, and my parents rushed to comfort her. A week later, she was driving a brand new car, smiling like nothing happened. But when I needed money for my college textbooks, I was told to work harder and learn responsibility. I worked 2 jobs that semester just to keep up. At the time, I thought it was normal. I told myself maybe I didn't deserve the same help. But now, looking back, I can see the truth. Fallon was always taken care of. I was always expected to take care of myself. Sitting in my quiet living room, I thought about the dinner in my father's study. The way they cornered me. The way they spoke to me like I was some tool they could use whenever they wanted. And suddenly, it didn't feel like a new problem. It felt like the end of a long story that started in childhood. I looked around the condo, the place I thought was my safe home. For years, I believed the low rent was a sign of love and support. I thought my parents were proud of me for being responsible and hardworking. But now, the truth hit me so hard I felt sick. The condo wasn't a gift. It was a leash. A way to keep me tied to them, close enough to use whenever Fallon needed help. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as the dependable one, the one who wouldn't say no. That realization hurt more than their threat to raise my rent. Because now I could see every moment clearly. Every time I went without help. Every time Fallon was rescued. Every time I was told to be mature, while she was allowed to be careless. It suddenly made sense. They never expected anything from Fallon because they expected everything from me. As the memories kept flooding back, the pain slowly changed. It wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't confusion. It was anger, quiet, steady anger. The kind that doesn't make me cry, but makes me finally open my eyes. They thought I would give in because I always had. They thought I would panic and agree to anything just to stay in this condo. They thought I would continue being the daughter who carried everyone else's weight. But something inside me shifted. I didn't feel guilty for thinking about myself. I didn't feel selfish for wanting peace. For the first time, I felt strong. I knew then that I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. I wasn't going to let them use my living situation against me. I wasn't going to be manipulated. This time, I would make my own decision, and they would never expect what I planned to do next. I decided not to argue with my parents anymore. There was no point. They had already made up their minds, and nothing I said would change how they saw me. So instead, I pretended to think about their offer. I nodded, stayed quiet, and acted like I needed time to decide. They seemed pleased, believing I was finally bending to their pressure. But inside, I had already made my choice. I was done being controlled. During my lunch breaks at work, I started searching for apartments. I spent hours scrolling through listings, comparing prices, reading reviews, and checking locations. I didn't want anything big or fancy. I just wanted a place that was mine, somewhere nobody could use against me. After a few days, I found a small, modern one-bedroom that matched my budget, even at full market rent. It wasn't close to my parents' condo, which made it even better. It felt like the fresh start I needed. In the evenings, when I got home, I began preparing. I didn't pack everything at once. That would have made them suspicious if they suddenly dropped by. Instead, I worked quietly and slowly. I packed books, old clothes, extra blankets, and other things I didn't need right away. I placed all the boxes neatly in my closet, where no one would notice. Each item I wrapped and tucked away made me feel lighter, like I was peeling myself out of the life they expected me to live. I also made sure all my important documents were gathered: birth certificate, passport, bank papers, work files. I put them in one folder and kept it close. This time, I wasn't going to leave anything behind that they could hold over me. But I had one more step to take before I could leave. A few weeks earlier, I had applied for a new job, one that offered better pay and fully remote work. I hadn't told my parents because I knew they would just find another way to twist it into something for Fallon. Now that silence worked in my favor. After a short video interview and a skills test, I got the call. I had been hired. They wanted me to start the next month. I felt a rush of relief and excitement. This new job meant freedom, real freedom. I wouldn't have to depend on anyone for anything. My parents had no idea. They still believed I needed their condo. They still believed I would give in. Every night, as I packed a little more and planned a little further, I felt myself getting stronger, braver. I wasn't scared anymore. I was ready. I had a plan. A quiet plan. And soon I would walk away from all their control for good. Before making any final moves, I wanted to understand exactly how much power my parents thought they had over me. They acted so confident, so sure that raising my rent would scare me into doing whatever they wanted. Something about that didn't sit right with me. So one night, I opened my laptop and started digging. I went to a public property records website and typed in the address of the condo. I didn't expect to find much. I thought maybe I would see when they bought it or how the ownership was listed. But what I found made me stop and stare at the screen. The condo was not owned free and clear like they always claimed. For years, they bragged about it being a smart investment property, something solid and fully paid off. But the records showed something completely different. The condo had a heavy mortgage on it. Not just a little, a lot. There were multiple loan records, showing refinances and borrowed amounts that were higher than I ever imagined. I sat back in my chair, trying to process it. All this time, they made it seem like they were doing me a huge favor by letting me live there for $800. They treated it like charity. But now it was obvious. The rent I paid every month wasn't helping me. It was helping them. My $800 was probably covering a big part of their mortgage payment. Without it, they would be stuck paying everything on their own. The realization hit me like a cold wave. Their threat to raise my rent to $2,200 wasn't confidence. It was desperation. They needed my rent to stay steady. They needed that money. They just hoped I didn't know the truth. They thought I would panic and agree to their plan, because they believed I depended on the condo. But now I saw it clearly. They were the ones depending on me. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. They used the condo to control me. They made me feel guilty for living there. They acted like they were supporting me out of kindness, when really, my rent was propping up their bad financial decisions. And instead of being honest, they tried to twist everything into a way to force me into caring for Fallon's child. I took a deep breath and saved the documents I found. I made sure to keep everything in a private folder. This information was important. It changed everything. It meant their threat was nothing more than a bluff. They couldn't afford to lose me as a tenant, even if they pretended they could. For the first time, I felt the power shift. I wasn't the one trapped. They were. And now, I had the truth on my side, a truth they never thought I would discover. My phone rang early in the morning, and when I saw my mother's name, I already knew why she was calling. I let it ring a few times before picking up. The moment I said hello, she went straight into her worried tone, the one she always used when she wanted something from me. She said she was checking in, but it didn't take long for her real purpose to show. She told me Fallon had been crying every day, saying she was overwhelmed and felt abandoned. Then she added that all this stress was affecting baby Mason, and that he was becoming fussy because he could feel the tension. I stayed quiet, listening to her go on and on about how families should support each other, how I was needed, and how I shouldn't make things harder. She acted like I had caused all the problems, as if their demands were normal and my hesitation was the real issue. Every word felt like another weight being placed on my shoulders. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't ask if I could handle more responsibilities. She only talked about Fallon, like always. After a few minutes of guilt-tripping and emotional pressure, she asked if I had made a decision. I told her I needed more time. She sounded annoyed but tried to hide it, saying she hoped I would do the right thing. When I hung up, I felt drained but also strangely sure of myself. Later that afternoon, I checked my email and felt my heart drop when I saw the subject line, Rent Adjustment Notice. It was from my father. The message was cold and formal, like he was writing to a stranger instead of his daughter. Attached to the email was a new lease with the rent changed to $2,200, starting the very next month. There was no conversation, no softening words, not even a hint of concern about how it might affect me. Just a document and a deadline. I stared at the screen for a long time. It wasn't the number that hurt me. It was the message behind it. They were treating me like a tenant, not family. They were pushing me into a corner, hoping pressure and fear would force me into becoming Fallon's unpaid nanny. Seeing that document made everything clear. They had made their choice. They preferred control over care. They preferred pressure over love. That email was the moment something solidified inside me. Any small part of me that still hoped they would understand or soften disappeared. The truth was right there in black and white. This wasn't about helping Fallon or supporting family. This was about using me. And they didn't even try to hide it anymore. I closed the email, took a slow breath, and felt a strange calm settle over me. The final straw had been dropped. I knew exactly what I needed to do next. There was no turning back now. I didn't wait anymore. The day after receiving the email, I signed the lease for my new apartment. The moment the digital contract went through, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It wasn't excitement yet, just calm, steady relief. I finally had a place that was mine, a place they couldn't use to control me. As soon as the lease was confirmed, I called a moving company and booked them for a weekday morning. I chose a time when I knew both my parents would be at work and Fallon would be busy with her baby. I wanted everything done quietly, without any chance of interruption or drama. After setting the moving date, I began packing the rest of my belongings. I didn't rush. I moved with a clear, steady rhythm, folding clothes, wrapping dishes, and sorting through drawers. I made sure I didn't leave anything important behind. I packed every book, every piece of clothing, every personal item. I even checked small places, behind the bathroom mirror, inside old boxes, under the bed. I wanted to make sure there was nothing left that they could claim or hold on to. The more I packed, the lighter I felt, as if I was finally peeling away the weight of years. I cleaned as I went, wiping down shelves, dusting corners, and sweeping the floors. I didn't do it out of kindness. I did it because I wanted no ties left. No excuses for them to call me back. No reason for them to accuse me of anything. When I finished, the place looked empty and spotless, like I had never lived there at all. It felt strange to see the condo so bare, but it also felt right, like walking out of a chapter that had gone on too long. The morning of the move came quietly. The movers arrived on time, and I guided them through the empty rooms. They worked quickly, loading everything into the truck. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel scared. I felt steady. When the last box was carried out, I locked the door behind me, took one final look, and walked away without hesitation. I reached my new apartment before noon. While the movers settled everything inside, I set up my laptop on the small kitchen counter and logged into work. My phone was on silent, face down beside me. I knew messages and missed calls would come eventually, so before starting my shift, I blocked my parents' and Fallon's numbers. It wasn't forever, just long enough to finish my move without stress or guilt. That day, I worked from my new home, surrounded by boxes and quiet. For the first time in a long time, nobody could reach me, demand from me, or corner me. I breathed easier. I felt free, and I knew I had made the right choice. I went straight to the certified mail counter, avoiding calls, messages, or explanations. This was the moment I claimed control over my life. Every item I placed in the package carried meaning, precise and deliberate. First, I added the condo keys. They had once symbolized comfort, a gift from my parents, but now they only reminded me of pressure and manipulation. Dropping them inside felt like releasing a weight I had carried for too long. Next, I included a printed copy of the email they sent. The tone was impersonal and businesslike, treating me as a tenant rather than a daughter. Words like market rates and business decision stood out sharply. Folding the message neatly, I added it to the box, letting them face their own words silently. I then typed a short note, precise and formal. Per your business decision regarding market rates, I have vacated the premises. My final rent payment of $800 is enclosed. Our financial relationship is now concluded. Nothing extra, nothing emotional, just a reflection of the cold attitude they had used with me for years. I placed the note on top of the contents. Finally, I enclosed the envelope with the $800 final rent. It marked the last contribution I would provide, a small gesture following rules I had been forced to obey. Sealing the box felt symbolic, a way of closing a chapter filled with demands, guilt, and unfair expectations. Everything inside represented years of manipulation leaving my hands. When the clerk asked about delivery confirmation, I agreed. Proof mattered, for myself, not them. Walking out, I felt steady, calm, and in control. No shouting, no drama, no emotional chaos. The package would communicate everything I needed it to, in the same cold tone they had always chosen. Once delivered, my independence would be real. Everything tied to that condo, every obligation, every unfair demand, would finally be gone. For the first time, I felt free. After a few quiet days, I unblocked my parents' and Fallon's numbers. Almost immediately, my phone exploded with messages and voicemails. The flood of anger, panic, and desperation hit me all at once. It was overwhelming, but also strangely satisfying. The first voicemail was from my father. His voice was tight, shaking with frustration. How could you do this to us? The mortgage is due. Every word felt like a mix of panic and guilt, but he was more worried about the money than me. Next came my mother. Her tone was softer but desperate. Cora, please, we're family. We need you to come back. She sounded almost pleading, trying to reach me emotionally, but it was clear she had been more concerned with control than care for years. Then Fallon's messages started coming in, short and sharp. You've ruined everything. Mom and Dad can't afford to help me with daycare now because of you. She sounded angry and frustrated, like the world had fallen apart for her, just because I refused to be her free nanny. Reading all of their messages, I realized the truth. They weren't worried about my well-being. They weren't asking because they cared about me or wanted to support me. Every reaction, every word, showed their true priorities. Their concern was money, not family. Their love was conditional, dependent on how much I provided for Fallon and how obedient I was. For years, I had thought their decisions were about love or family bonds. I had convinced myself that their support and control were signs of care. Now the mask was gone. Their real motive was clear. They had wanted to keep Fallon spoiled and comfortable while using me as a steady resource to pay for it. Instead of panic or guilt, I felt a strange calm. I had already made my choice. I had walked away from their system, their rules, and their control. Their messages were loud, but they no longer held power over me. As I read each text and listened to each voicemail, the anger started to fade, replaced by relief. I was free from the constant manipulation, free from carrying responsibilities that weren't mine, and free to finally live my life on my own terms. For the first time, I could see everything clearly. I mattered to myself, and that was enough. Their priorities didn't define me, and their panic could no longer reach me. A month passed quietly, and I had almost forgotten the storm I left behind. Life in my new apartment felt peaceful and normal, and I was finally focused on myself and my work. Then a friend reached out with news about my parents and Fallon. I listened carefully, surprised at how much had changed in such a short time. Apparently, without my $800 rent coming in, my parents were struggling. The condo I had left had a heavy mortgage, and now they had to list it for rent at $2,200. The market was soft, and no one was jumping to take it. They had counted on me, but suddenly, the safety net I provided was gone, and they were feeling the pressure. I felt a quiet satisfaction knowing they could no longer take my presence for granted. Fallon, too, was facing real consequences. She had a part-time job that was manageable only because my parents covered almost everything else in her life, including full-time daycare for Mason. With my absence and the financial strain on Raymond and Diane, they could no longer afford to support her in the same way. She had no choice but to quit her job and stay home with the baby. I could almost picture her now, stressed and frustrated, realizing life was no longer so easy. Hearing about their struggles made me realize just how much they had relied on me. For years, I had been the one to keep their household running smoothly, to provide quiet stability while Fallon stayed protected and pampered. Now the tables had turned. Every challenge they faced, the mortgage, the daycare, Fallon's constant needs, was fully theirs to handle. The weight of the golden child's dependency, which had never been mine to carry, was now theirs. I felt a sense of relief and pride. I had made the right choice by walking away. I hadn't done anything cruel or spiteful. I had simply stopped letting myself be used. The consequences they faced were a natural result of their own decisions and expectations. I could finally see them dealing with the reality they had ignored for so long, and it felt fair. This news reinforced everything I had learned through the process. Freedom wasn't just about leaving a place. It was about reclaiming my life and my peace. It was about letting go of responsibility that was never mine and watching those who misused it face their own challenges. I didn't need to interfere, argue, or teach them a lesson. Life had already done it for me. For the first time in years, I could focus completely on myself. I didn't have to worry about covering someone else's mistakes or supporting someone who never appreciated it. My choices had consequences, and in this case, they allowed me to step back and breathe, knowing that the weight of responsibility had finally shifted where it belonged. I sit in my new apartment, the space completely mine. It's smaller than the condo I left behind, but it feels right. The quiet surrounds me like a soft blanket. It isn't lonely. It's peaceful. For the first time in years, I can hear myself think without interruptions, without expectations, without anyone using me to prop up their lives. I look around at the empty walls, the neat kitchen, the little living area, and I feel a calm I didn't know I could feel. I think about everything that brought me here. The pressure from my parents, Fallon's demands, the constant feeling of being used. The betrayal still stings when I remember how they tried to manipulate me, how they treated me like money and time were all I was worth. But that sting is light now, almost like a memory of a lesson I had to learn. I realize how much I've changed. I'm no longer the one who bends to keep peace or keeps quiet to avoid conflict. I've built something solid for myself. I found a home that belongs only to me. I found a job that gives me freedom and stability. I packed up my life, made a plan, and stepped out of their control. I broke the cycle of manipulation that had followed me for years. Sitting here, I feel the weight lifting off my shoulders. It isn't just about leaving the condo or refusing to be Fallon's unpaid nanny. It's about taking back my own life, my own power. I've built my own safety net without anyone else holding it for me. I didn't need their permission, their approval, or even their acknowledgement. I created a life where I make the rules, where my choices matter first. And I understand now that the strongest form of revenge isn't yelling, arguing, or trying to prove a point. It's walking away. It's living a life that isn't burdened by their expectations, by their selfishness, by their constant need to control me. It's choosing happiness and freedom over fear and obligation. For the first time, I feel completely free. I have my space, my time, and my peace. I have my life. And that is more than enough. I am no longer trapped by anyone else's demands. I am whole, unburdened, and finally living on my own terms.